is going to be participating all the way from Kampala in Uganda. I hope it's in Kampala. Good evening, Mr. Gana. We're glad to have you.
Hey, good evening, Leo. Thank you so much for having me today. I will be very glad to be with the team.
It's been long. Hope you're doing well.
Yes, I'm doing wonderful.
Okay, we'll be coming back to you very shortly. We also are expecting Apostle Ambi Valentine Ngwa to be part of this edition of the program. He should be caught in traffic. We hope he beats traffic to join the program this evening. Dr. Nick Ngwaniam, when you look at Africa and the other continents, you can chest pound that we are doing pretty well?
No, we are not doing well at all. Interestingly, Africa is one of the most blessed continents, but we are not doing well because of something in us as a person, as a people. That thing in us, if we don't correct it, we are going nowhere, and we have spent a lot of time blaming other people. But in reality, the problem is with us, and I hope that we'll be able to look into that and solve the problem. It's very important.
Okay. I don't know where your mic is on.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. You say we are not where we are supposed to be because there is something that is...
Yes.
Is it the pigmentation?
No. It's not the pigmentation, but because Africans have been ridiculed for a very long time, and Africans can be picked out of the crowd because of their pigmentation, we begin to think that our problem is pigmentation. The problem is not pigmentation. It's just that people have related that pigmentation to a way of life that is not very well to do on the world stage. But before probably we get lost into nitty-gritties, you remember I came out with a flyer that I sent out on social media. It looks like a fan, and I painted it green, red, yellow, where I mentioned the 3 things that make the world turn, and then I mentioned education as the electricity of things. That is the core of things, and if we are looking for why Africa has failed in those 4 core areas.
Okay, Africa has failed in those core areas. Mr. Maina Gana, why... your assessment of where Africa is comparatively to other continents. Are you satisfied, or you also regret, like Dr. Nick, that there is something that is not working for us?
Thank you, Mr. Leo. I will align my vision with Dr. Nick. To be honest, we are lacking behind. We are not doing well. Let us take the bull by the horn. The situation we are having in Africa here, when we find out with all the resources, the human skills we have, when we compare with where we are today, things are not getting better. Why? Number one, we lack purpose. In Africa, when you sit down with our leaders, you discuss with them, they don't have purpose. I can say that they did not draw the foundation. Some of the African countries are doing better. I'll give you an example. When you see Tanzania with the late John Pombe Magufuli in 6 years, because this guy was having a clear vision, having understanding of the issues of the country, he went to the extent to implement a lot of things in just 6 years. When you go to Tanzania, you compare Tanzania 6 years before, and now it's a complete change. So the issues we are having in Africa is that our leaders understand exactly what is needed for the country. I am not blaming leaders, but I can get to a level they say that if someone don't have nothing to offer you, even you blame him 1,000 times, he can't offer you more than what he have. At the end of the day, what is our purpose? What is our vision for the African continent? What do we want? Where we are, where can we connect the 2 dots from where we are to where we want to be? This middle, what can we do to make sure that we close the gap? This is the situation we are in Africa. And it's similarly, when you go, you start to understanding it's going to more in French countries even than English. Because when you see some English countries in Africa, they are a little bit advanced than the French one. You are asking question, is there anything we do not understand? Is there anything we do not understand? Is there anything we are not doing well in their French system? This is always I'm asking myself, Mr. Leo, but we are not doing well. Let us agree.
We are not doing. We are not doing well. What are we not doing that the Arab world is doing that the Asians are doing?
Okay, Mr. Leo, let us take as basic things. The infrastructure. We can take any African country. You find there is a place that there is not even access, roads, simple things. Now, water, electricity, those are basic things that we don't need to talk about on 21st centuries, right? But they are there in Africa. You cannot go to any Arab or Asia country now. We are talking about the road, Mr. Leo. There is some areas, you know, in that many parts, either in Cameroon or Chad, in Central African Republic, you go to Congo, some of the region, you cannot even access them by road. Simple things. We are talking about electricity, water. This is not a technology that we need, but we don't have them. Simple things. We don't have a basic good education system. But when you go to Asia or you go to Arab countries, you find out those things are far behind. When we talk about health, we don't have the facility healthcare in our system in Africa here. They are very, very poor, Mr. Leo.
Okay, they are very, very poor, Mr. Nji Lucas. We are looking at the reasons why Africa is not doing so well development-wise compared with what obtains out there in Asia and the Arab world. Many persons think it is an issue of colonialism. Do you buy that?
Yes, it is not the sole factor or the only variable that is holding the development of Africa. We have the central factor which is actually holding the development of Africa is the mindset of the Africans. We have several factors. We have policy which has to go with the level of development is what is widely lacking in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, because when you come to Africa, the sub-Saharan African countries, particularly, we can say that their underdevelopment is very terrible. If you look at the mindset of the leaders, it's quite terrible. I want to say that looking at what is actually happening in Africa, which is the major drive. If you take a country like Japan after the World War II, they had to adopt the policy of a certain Greek king at a particular point in time because they saw it as the only way out. And what they did was they took everything and placed it on the ground and said, we're going to bring this man's philosophy on the table. And the philosophy is that stone is gold, plastics are gold. Every single thing you find around them, they consider it to be gold. And what they see is that they take these things and ensure that they have to transform them to give the value that it deserves. Now, when we look at the aspect of policy in Africa, if we are to compare the Asian continent to Africa, you will realize that one of the major problem in Africa is bureaucracy. Is bureaucracy. It makes it very difficult for investors to see reasons why they have to invest. When I said partly the colonial documents that were given to us, I will put it that way, most African countries are still struggling to find themselves within their own documents or their constitutions that will suit who they are. If you look at the case of Mali recently, they had a referendum where it's all about should we do this and should we not do this, and that referendum centers on the constitution that was built for the country by the French. So the problem in Africa is the issue of mindset, and the mindset which we are currently faced with is the mindset of our leaders who are living in the European standard of life and are refusing the fact that they're in Africa. Now, what do I mean? They are readily available to take all for themselves, and they refuse to see reasons why they have to develop the area for it to be the way we deserve. When they are sick, they move to the Europe for treatment. When they want to have the best of what they want, they move to Europe to have this. So when you look at these things, it is very obvious that if you were to compare with some of the Asian companies or some of the Asian countries, you will not find them in Africa. Now, it is unfortunate that why the Asians will send some persons abroad to study and come back home, some of the persons we will send abroad to study and bring us the knowledge back home have decided not to come. And some, when they come, like I said, with the aspect of bureaucracy, it makes it very difficult for some of these persons to put some of these fine ideas they have in their head. And it gives them only one reason to move back to where they came from with this idea, because that is the only place where such an idea can be accommodated. So, by and large, we have the aspect of, we have the issue of governance. We also have certain issues that has to do with the people's geography and culture. I keep saying that if you want to have a people succeed, you must understand their culture. The Asians have a particular culture they are following. The Arabs have a particular culture they have accepted and they are following it. And they are doing it religiously. If you go to China, for example, now, why we were struggling to work with the structural adjustment program, which succeeded, which part of it was extracted, because they extrapolated the structural adjustment program from the post-World War II, which was now used by the Americans and the Europeans to reconstruct Europe. They brought it to Africa. But it was not put on the ground as it ought to be, because the mindset of the people had not changed. The culture of the people did not permit it. So the Europeans have accepted that development, the people must have development in their minds religiously. The Asians have accepted that they must have development in their minds religiously. That is why in China, every single person who studies in China is focusing on how China should grow, which is not the case in most African countries, and most especially the sub-Saharan African countries.
Okay. Sub-Saharan African countries. Dr. Nick Ngwaniam, so many persons are thinking that the issue with Africa is what has to do with leadership. Is that where our problem is? Most of our leaders went to the same schools that Asians leaders went to, where the Arab guys also studied. Why is our case different?
Well, to an extent, you can blame leadership, but give me a few minutes. Let me step out.
Okay.
Step out of this discussion and try to bring to us the big picture, because as we'll be speaking, it doesn't matter what I would say, what Mr. Gana would say, or what Mr. Nji would say, or the question you would ask. You will realize that whatever we say would be part of a package. So I want to define that package so that we can identify the elements as we go around. Whatever a participant mentions, look into that package and you will see how the jigsaw fits. Now, for starters, I said that there are three things that rule the world. How do things work? There are three things. How do things work? You have three elements. Number one is politics. Number two is economics. And number three is development. Each of these elements has got two parts to it. When we talk about politics, you mean the policies. When Mr. Nji was talking a moment ago, you see he kept mentioning policies. What are the policies that guide all of our actions? What did we agree to do? Those policies are put in a book called laws or the business plan or whatever. What did you agree to do and not to do? So when you hear about the government, the parliament, it's all about policy, agreeing on what should be done and what should not be done. So it's very important. And then the part B of policy or politics is making sure that what you agreed on is done to the letter. That's it. So you put in place a good policy. That's part A. And in part B, you ensure that what you agreed to do, that you all do it in the right time, with the right resources, without wastage and so on. So that's it. It's politics. And there is nothing that works without politics. You know, and politics, when we are talking about politics, is not just in the country. Mr. Kum is married. He has his politics in his house. Mr. Nji is married. He has his politics in his house. I am married. You are married. You have your every family has got their policies and the way they agree to do things. And if if the family head doesn't put an eye on it and make sure that those things are done the way they are done, 10 years afterwards, 20 years afterwards, your children will be flying all over the whole place, and you will not have any children because you didn't bring them up according to those laid down principles. So policy in the house is very important, or the politics in any business is very important. B is economics. What is economics? In economics, the question is, how do you create wealth? How do you earn money? So how does money come in? How does wealth come in? That's the part A. Part B is, how are you spending that money? That's what economics is all about. What are you doing with it? And if you don't put in proper systems to earn money, you will have problems. Then if you earn money and you don't know how to spend it intelligently and wisely, you will have problems. Then we go to part C. Part C is development. And when we are talking about development again, we said there are two parts. So that big word development, part A of the development is the development of physical structures, whatever they may be. Is it internet, electricity, water, roads, airplanes, railways, shipping lines, houses, name it. All of that is physical. Then the physical cannot work if you don't have the human being. That is now what we call the human development, measured as the human capacity index. So in any country, if you want to know whether a country is going to go forward or backwards, left or right, look at the quality of the human beings in that nation. Look at the quality of human beings in the house. Look at the quality of human beings in that government. Look at the quality of human beings in that business enterprise. It is the human beings that make things happen. And therefore, if the quality of the human beings that are there is not good enough, if they don't have the technical skills, if they don't have the leadership and managerial skills, if they don't have the character, if they don't know what to do, if they don't put boundaries on themselves and on others, and they're just behaving in a manner that is wayward, then you have this big term called bad governance. And once you have bad governance, nothing is going to grow, and that's one thing that Africa is suffering from a lot. Now, these three elements, what is common about these three elements? There is a force and energy that makes these three things to turn in unison and turn positively. It is education. The education must be proper education. If the education is not proper, then you will not have the wisdom to make these things happen. And the problem of Africa, and I will keep saying, is that we've had a bad education for 60 years. The white man came and gave us something that he called education, but in reality, it is not education. It was deceit. And the right education, if you want to understand the right education, look at Finland, Germany, Holland, Israel, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and Malaysia. They have the best education in the world, not even America. So we are saying that we got the wrong thing and never understood what we are doing. So we just go to school, study, and have this A-level, 5 grades, 25 points, and so on. Yet we don't know how to bake a cake. That is the problem.
We don't know how to bake a cake. That is the problem. Mr. Maina Gana, you are out in Uganda. Is our problem actually the system of education or the value system that we attach to things in Africa?
So basically, Dr. Anit has said it on the very wider perspective that if everyone understands, he knows that we are facing a larger problem because the education system is not helping. And you know, if you are having an education that is not matching with what you do, imagine that Mr. Leo has studied aviation industry. Now you come back as you being a journalist. You know, it's not going to work. You are going to do a lot of blunders. That's 100%. And that is where we are facing in Africa now. The system, the education is not proper for our development. It's not helping the growth of Africa. When you study, when you see the interview of let's say I call Sheikh Maktoum in Dubai, when they ask him, what do you want for your country? He said, I want to be number one. I want my country to be one of the best on earth. I want my people to have one of the best education. I want my people to have one of the best healthcare. You see a leader who have a clear vision. He have set a path for exactly what he wants, and he put it on the mind of all the people of UAE that this is what we we belong to. This is what we want in our life. This is what we are ready to do to make sure we have a better life. So he have a clear path. Now, when we come back to Africa, Mr. Leo, you can ask many of our leaders, when you sit with them, you ask them their priorities. No one can tell you 2 things that he wants to change before he leaves this planet Earth. You can name it. Whenever countries you go, sit with our leaders. There are few who are doing well, but some of our leaders now, when you sit with them, you tell you, what do you want to change in this world before you leave? He will never tell you 2 things that can help the country. He's going to tell you only stories about politics and politics and politics. And like Doctor was saying, see, our system of politics is not matching with the agenda for now, because this political system in early 60s, and it's not working with our system, because whatever rules of law, whatever things we want to apply, is not going to help us actually, because it's not working. Imagine you have a house of 2 people, you and your wife. You set the rules to live with you and your wife. At the end of the day, you find yourself, you have 17 kids. So, and you are applying the same rules, the one you put from you and your wife, is going to be complicated. The majority of the African countries, when you see the system, the foundation we put is the foundation of 1960s. So those foundations now, they are not working. They are not working at all. If you see also the people we have who, as the guardian of that, our laws are not even helping, because they are not even up to date, because they don't even have a clue what a country needs in order to develop themselves. Anytime when we sit down in Africa, we find out that there is something we are lacking, but we did not bring back our memory to say what it is, what is making us lacking behind, what are we doing that is not working. How many of Africans can sit down to agree that they are in the wrong path and they decide to come back? And like Dr. always is saying, we need to change our education system. This education system is not helping. It's not helping at all, because our mind is not focuses on the development on the continent. Imagine it's only in African continent that we end up having more than maybe 1,000 times graduated in a country that the government don't have any plan for them. No, the government don't have any clue what they want to do with this young generation, but they keep the young generation going to the university, graduating and coming out. What are we doing? What are we doing for the country? And all of those generation coming out, if you find out the kind of education they have, they cannot develop the country, because it's the same early 60s. This is their difficulties, Mr. Leo. We need to make sure that we sit down properly to investigate ourselves, to find out where we are getting it wrong, and we start correcting.
Yes, but here is an issue of religion and culture. When you look at the way the Arab nations and Asians are structured and the way they carry themselves, do you think religion and culture has a role to play with the way we do things out there in Africa?
Absolutely. But the best thing is that you see in Africa, we are the people who can blend ourselves with our cultures. We can make it better, because you see, when you see how we come from the different ethnic group and the different religion, when you see the way we are living, means that anything we want to do, we are tolerant and we can make it better. So religion have also a power to make things change, but the leadership itself, you know, they believe on our leaders. Imagine that if you are a family, the head of the family, and you show your family that you believe in them, that you guys can do everything to build one of the strong family. The moment you put this belief in their mind, everybody will follow you. But the problem is our leaders does not put the emphasis of showing our people that we believe in ourselves, that whatever we have, we can make it better. You know, religion is, I can say, is byproduct that can just help us to move forward. Cultural also is a byproduct, because we can abide and respect any other cultures, but we can come together to make it work. We are seeing it on some of the African countries. They are getting better the moment they find out that we are lacking behind, not because of the culture of the religion. We are lacking behind because we did not change our mind. We did not change our thinking. Because up to now, when you see a typical African man who was born before the independence, he will tell you that the problem he is having is the colonial master. But that is not true now.
Okay, that is not.
When you see people, yeah.
That is not true now by what you say, Mr. Nji Lucas. Persons think that the policies, government policies that are being used in Africa today are outdated. Another leading reason why Africa is still lagging behind the rest of the world is because, accordingly, of the outdated government policies, technological innovation, industrial growth, and improved living standards are all fueled by government. But sadly, in Africa, the governments are not paying much heed to all this. The governments have implemented such policies that are not helpful at all the development levels. In the investment sector, African governments have invested way less than the whole world, where the whole world spends an average of 2.6 of their GDP in science and technology, research and innovation. The African governments have invested way less than this, which resulted in African nations lagging behind the rest of the world. Are we also, do you understand what we're saying here?
Yes, of course. Now the summary is that if you go to Asia, for example, because we are looking at Asia and Africa, if you went to the Philippines, you would have noticed that the government in Philippines, they prioritize investment in the technological world than in the system that was given to them by their colonial master. It's the same thing with China. It's the same thing you have with Japan. It's the same thing you have with India. And the list will go on until you must have exhausted the list of the countries in Asia. Now, the aspect of the policy in Africa and that which we have received is one of the biggest problems. In China, for example, protectionism is the highest thing the Chinese are working on. They ensure that whatsoever is imported, they know exactly what to do with that. They take more into your country than what they receive in their country. They protect their country. They protect what is happening from within. Now, the Chinese would invest more in sending somebody to spy in the US, for example, as was alleged by the Americans. The Chinese will invest more, like we had the case of Huawei, where the CEO was actually kept in Canada because it was said that every single Huawei product spies into the world which the Americans have and the Brits. Now, the major problem with Africa is that African leaders accept these things on paper, but they don't want to go by it practically. Now, we also have a dormant citizen within this frame of activities. Now, let's be fair and let's be factual here. I am assuming that right now I am the father of my house, and I have kids who are of age, and they have gone to school, and they have other things they want to do. No matter what they do, as I keep blocking them, there is nothing they will do and go above that. We have listened to people like Dr. Nick. He has talked about the aspect of our educational system for long. Mr. Gana equally buys that same idea. There are others across the board in Africa who accept that idea. But what is the issue? We cannot rule out the fact that we have the colonial masters still at work. Firstly, let us see these things. Our countries are not yet independent. An independent person does not rely on the money that is printed by another country. If I were to extrapolate Cameroon from the countries which we are talking about, we do not have a currency of ours. So if you go to the market to buy, if you look at the right on certain product, the Americans have developed in technology, for example, and the Chinese have resulted in stealing that technology, as the Americans will put it. They send their students who go there to study and they go back home. If you go to other countries, when these people study, they go back home. But in Africa, what is happening? It is the vice versa. So, proponents of how much money is spent, they are right. But if you look at it, it is a system which we also have to start advocating. We have to start decrying that. Let the world, indeed, we talk about the world being a global village. Now, what is the reason for you to put what we call right on certain product, and you refuse that this same product should not be in other countries? We know that if you come to Africa, in some African countries, we are quick to accept the last grade of whatsoever is being produced. If you look at even the technological world, if we want to have persons who have understood how to mount this microphone, we will go for persons who will mount this microphone only when the microphone is bad. We don't want to have persons who will mount it from when the chips are still good to give us reasons why it has to speak the way it does. But the problem here is, if we should take leadership to action, we would have solved this problem. You cannot go and study abroad and what you have cannot be implemented at home. It will not work. And if we look at the way it is, for example, the Chinese, they have decided that the West is not going to dictate to them, because we are looking at countries who got independent at a similar time with us. If you look at the Singapore, if you look at Malaysia, if you look at the others, they all had their independence within the same time we had our independence. It is sad hearing that a people that were created got their independence from other human beings. We accept that for now. Now, when you look at these countries, at the time they were partly liberated like us. I think that would be a better phrase. At the time they were partly liberated like us, they decided to commit themselves more. Their citizens are upright. But in Africa, for example, especially the sub-Saharan African countries, which is the area which, if you were to look at how Africa is bad, it is this area, and they make up about 46 countries, with Cameroon included in this within these countries. We have decided that leaders who are here should be the one to tell us what system of education we want to study. And of course, if they cannot negotiate properly, they don't go into proper negotiation. The West does not give its technology for free. I tell you the truth, if we accept that we want to change the system of education, that we want to start coupling, let me take the case of the TV. The chips in the TV are not produced by us. And the persons who sell this chip, if they decide otherwise that we will not buy this chip, we will not buy the chip. So our leaders, they have decided to be persons who follow order. If you look at the last U.S. African Leaders Summit, if you look at the way African leaders went to the United States of America, they did not go as equals. A single country sits and calls a continent. And we have not heard a certain African Leaders Summit or African Business Summit where the countries in Africa would invite the Americans and tell them what they want. But in Africa, we are quick to move. France today calls us. The government of Cameroon have left for France, which is also one other trip that has to do with business and the rest. Now, why can't we sit and call the French people and tell them, right now, the technology that was used in building this particular bridge, we want to have 30% of that technology, else we will not do business with you. But we don't do those things. This is what the Chinese will do. The Chinese tell the Americans, this is what we want. The Americans are aware, because you cannot refuse what China also produce. We have ability and we have a particular capability which we should use it as our bargaining power, but we are not using it. So leadership in Africa is the biggest problem. No matter what we say, no matter what we do, if you go to the United States and you are the best surgeon, if you care, come to Cameroon and the hospital's facilities are not there, you will not work. There's nothing you will do. If you care, go to the United States of America, as it is said that the SIM card we are now using was actually made or developed by a Cameroonian, which we see today in some countries, they are using them. But the question is, have we accepted that the machine that produces this SIM card be put in Cameroon? They are produced somewhere else and they are ferried into the country. So why can't we accept that this thing should be there? So our leaders are not broke. The deals they go out there, they don't have the best deals for us. They have deals which are self-centered. They want to have the best from every single deal which they go out there to negotiate.
Yes, Dr. Nick, let's look at investments that we make. Lots and lots of money is borrowed from the international community. I'm sure Asians and the Arab world also borrow similarly, though now they are the ones helping money. But we get lots of money from these international financial institutions across the globe. Is it that we are investing it wrongly, or like you say, we lack the manpower with that capacity to rightly implement or follow through with investment projects? But why are these investments not yielding profits after so many decades?
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting question, and I would delve into it. I hope you will give me time.
Okay.
But just give me 2 minutes. Let me, when Mr. Gana was answering his question about religion and culture, I had a few brain waves. You see, religion, when we are talking about religion, sometimes Christians or Muslims, they can get a little bit anxious and nervous about it. But let's understand one thing. Religion is different from the fear of God. What is important is the fear of God, is not religion. Religion is the politics surrounding, organizations that claim to fear God. And so they would come up, the Catholics would worship in a particular way and do things in a particular way, the Pentecostal and so on. That's religion. But what God expects from us is the fear of Him, not the religion. And so we have got lost in the religion, and we are actually lost. And where it's hurting Africa most is the newer religions that are preaching a gospel of no tribulations, a gospel of miracles. So when you have a population that expects manna, that expects to be fed without having worked, that expects to inherit homes that they never planted, and you put that in their minds, then you have damaged you have damaged them for generations. So that preaching has really killed Africans. And the other thing is culture. To understand what is happening, when you look at the Asians and go and look at their culture, let me the South Koreans and then the Israelites and the Japanese. I'm sure you have seen this video of the Japanese at a red light, where they all come. This is how Japanese behave. They all come to a junction, and there is no car on the road. There is no bicycle on the road, but the lights, the color of the lights is on red, and no pedestrian goes across, even though there is no car or anything. They stay there until it changes for the human being to go across. Then they all go across. It's called discipline. And
we've seen the Japanese during the World Cup.
Yes.
Anytime they went to any stadium.
Yes.
After the match, they took the pains to clean the stadium before leaving.
Yes. That is what makes things work. It is that culture of discipline that we don't have. So we can do whatever we want in Africa, self-discipline, respect for the common good. If we don't have that in our system, we are going nowhere. But the Asians have respect. They have that culture of respect of the common good and respect for each other. They don't break it. You will see. You've seen the way even the children, they will bow down in reverence. They revere everybody. They respect. So it is something that we are missing out on. See what happens in Japan, and then see what happens on our own roads in Cameroon. If you want to see how people behave, check what they do on the roads, then you get a good idea. Now to the other question, I think it was
on investments.
Sanji, the question you just answered a moment ago, was it on technology?
Yes, on technology.
Yes. To say that, what is it that is driving the world as we speak? What is the currency? What is the energy that drives the world? The word is technology. If you don't have technology, you are a liar, forget it. And that is what Africa does not have. So we still do our agriculture with a hoe like this, but the Chinese, they use machines and then engineering, and then they grow the rice, and we have to buy the rice because we still go with the hoe. So the answer is technology. As long as you don't have technology, you've got nothing. So if someone were to wake you up from sleep and ask you, what is it that is lacking in Africa? Just say technology and you get it. So to our investment now, Mr. Liu, that you're asking the question, so much money is being borrowed. And
because it's typical of a businessman who receives so much money, and after 40 years, they are still wanting.
They are still wanting more money.
The fact that they are not,
and you cannot show what you have done with the money that you borrowed before. That's what we call bad governance. Bad governance is a term that englobes a lot. But when you say bad governance, that term, 70% of bad governance is accounted for by corruption. Okay, corruption. So if someone were to say what is bad governance, just say it's corruption. So, and then there are other things too. So it is this bad governance that has killed us. So we borrow a lot of money and we bring in, and we don't have the discipline of investing it. So we put it into white elephant projects, and at the end of the day, the project that we put the money in cannot generate 1 kobo, and half of the money was swindled and taken back to Europe or wherever. So everything is in ruins, and we keep starting all over again. You know, I feel so bad sometimes. Have you seen those classrooms that were built by the Japanese?
Yeah.
Have you looked at them?
Some are deplorable.
They are deplorable. Yeah. Yet the Japanese came and built very beautiful classrooms and gave us, but we don't even know how to just look after them and keep them clean. I mean, that is just how bad we are. Look at just look at around us here. These sick buildings. Yeah. See how dirty they look. See the grass that is growing around. Go on the road, like the beautiful road that has been built that's going to Bonaberry. See the grass that is growing all over the whole place. Okay. See the road that is coming into Bonamusadi here. All the street lamps have been knocked down by speeding cars and trucks.
Around Tradex there.
Around Tradex.
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
We were discussing about this today.
So
who do you blame for this?
It's that mindset that you were saying. Irresponsibility. We are irresponsible. From the least to the biggest, we are a bunch of irresponsible people. And until we do something about it and begin to accept that, it does not matter how much money you give a Negro, an African, if he doesn't change his mindset and know what is important, have respect of common good, knows exactly what he wants, and when he is borrowing money, he should put the money into what he borrowed it for, there will be problems. You know, many banks are into trouble with a lot of people who have come to borrow money, you know, especially credit unions. You borrow money for a project, and you don't have the discipline for rents, put it aside. What is for food and health? Put it aside. What is for electricity and water? What is for fees? Then probably take 1,000 or 2,000 and buy a beer and come and share with your wife. If you put that money in your pocket and go to your girlfriend or something, and then you waste in the Cartier, and then later you say you have been beaten up and so on, you put the family in difficulty. So this is a concrete example of how we use a salary at home. That is exactly how the states are misusing money and putting everybody at risk.
Okay, putting everybody at risk. Mr. Maina Gana, where is the problem with our investment priorities? How do we make the difference? You saw, certainly you've read about the story of Dubai, how it was constructed not long ago. They got the money and they are where they are. Why is our case different when it comes to our investments? Why are they not paying off?
First of all, I want to attribute this issue on lack of understanding the real issue of the country. Our leaders, when you sit with them, as I was telling earlier, 99% of our leaders cannot understand exactly the real issue of our countries. They have their own priorities. Because he's into politics, he wants to do something to look good with the people, and he wants to get vote for the next election. But he don't have the priority, what is needed for this country. Either I will elect the next election or not, but I will defend this project. I make sure the project is well done. When you talk about Dubai, let's go back. Dubai has been developed in less than 30 years. Mean that they was having a very good understanding with their blueprint. They know exactly what they want, and they are using every dime to develop the country. That's why the country is prospering and the people are enjoying the country. Even me and you right now, if we want to enjoy, have our vacation, we go to Dubai. But imagine, it's a country that the weather is more than 44 degrees Celsius. But imagine we spend our money and we go there to take selfie and show it in Africa that we are in Dubai. It's a nice country. We can do it in Africa. And you know, I can take an example, either Cameroon, Congo, DRC, Congo, Brazzaville, we talk about Gabon, all of those countries, they are more richer than Dubai in terms of mineral resources, in terms of money. So why we cannot do like them? We don't have priority. What is our priority? We don't have one. Because we can't sit down to agree that this is the problem we are facing in the country and we need to make sure we fix it, we develop it. How many of our African leaders, especially French countries, you know that they can stand, they tell you, we have this issue of railway, we need to make sure that we will never talk about railway for 10 years. We want to do our best. Maybe we have issue of roads. We want to make sure that our road will fix. We have issue of transportation. We want to make sure they don't have this priority. But at the end of the day, when you see the expenditure of the government, they are spending more of futilities, the things that is not even important for the country. They are loading the country with debt without having even a proper plan. As Dr. Nick was saying, imagine that you borrow money, you are paying the services, the loan for the next 40 years. You have not done anything, but you still broke and you come back again to take another loan to service this one. So when are you going to develop the country? And you know that when we decide now to make sure that we can make Africa better, we will, because we have these resources. But we don't have people. People of what? Our mindset, because our mindset is not ready to change. The time when we decide to change, everything will change, Mr. Leo.
Everything will change. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the knowledgeable panelists. Mr. Liu, Cameroonians leaves the country for abroad, learn and to not return home because our country do not value human resources, as this is visible from their low wage rate, because no matter how much love you have for your country, it doesn't take away the fact that everyone has to be rewarded accordingly. Andrew Agbo is writing from Yaoundé. Is this also a problem Africa is faced with? The best brains leaving America is draining, France is draining, the UK,
Canada.
and Canada.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. We cannot refuse that. It's a factor. It's one of the biggest problems we are now facing, because you know, they don't take the chaffs, as we commonly put it. They take the best. That is why when you apply, they have to sift and they take the best. Yes, if we do not work on wage, you know, when you pay a child that's small, or when you pay someone that's small, that person is likely going to fall into what may not be good for you. And at the end of the day, what will happen with you is that maybe your firm, maybe your business may run into trouble, because such a person would desire to leave, especially if the person has the human resource required in growing that business. This is one of the problems we are currently facing. There is another issue which Africans need to work on. It's the aspect of the rule of law. We do not respect law in Africa. I want to look at a situation where you are already into business, and for some reasons you have paid all the tax which was required of you, and suddenly you find some persons that will always come around in the name of that person you paid to, that was for that person, and this person you paid to, it was for this person, and things like that. It also comes a long way in killing the development of Africa. The problem we have with most investors, or what most investors have in mind, is that most African countries are cunning. You find persons whom they will accept that they should bring their money and invest in a particular business or invest in your country. If you look at Apple, which have one of the biggest plants so far in China, if you look at the Samsung phones that some people use here, you will not find that Samsung phone in the United States of America. But you have that which is produced from wherever it is being produced. You realize that the labor that you have in that particular company, it does not necessarily come from, or it's not necessarily coming from that particular country. It's not coming from South Korea solely. You have other countries that are involved. If you look at the Americans, they decided and take their that China has cheaper labor, and this is one of the easiest way the Chinese decided to have the technology that the Americans have, because they told the Americans that, okay, we have cheaper labor. I remember when Donald Trump came up and said America first. Some companies, he said he was going to bring them back to America, but the Americans did not accept, because the labor in China is relatively not too high like that of the United States of America, probably because of their living standard, and the Chinese are benefiting from that. Now, let me look at the case of Cameroon. Like I earlier said, we are assuming that a certain phone company wants to start building phones within the CEMAC sub-region, and Cameroon is chosen. Most often when these people come, our tax system is one of the biggest problems they are facing, because we want to give them the tax that we will collect and put in our pocket immediately, and we forget about the knowledge that we can have from that. Look at when we bought the computers. Some other countries that also bought these computers, they told the Chinese that, okay, we are going to couple in our country. So you realize that policy and policymakers, they will always be present in every single reason why a country cannot develop, because at that level they are the ones negotiating. Now, when the president took some Cameroonians or some of his ministers to the United States in this business forum, he did not take some of the businessmen that would have been there to make these policies. Some of these businessmen who went there, they did not go there to determine how everything will work out, because the government in place is the one to ensure that every single thing you discuss, at the end of the day, if that particular thing does not benefit them, some of these persons will not accept that this thing should be in your country. So why the Chinese, why the Koreans, why the Malaysians, why the Indians and the rest, why they are accepting that you should come, and they are ready to receive part of the tax be invested in technology in their countries? Because what they do is that if they were to pay a certain amount, let's take 50 francs for example, some of these countries would tell them, oh, you will not pay 50 francs, you are going to give us just about 30 francs, and 20 francs should be invested in technology in my country. So our tax system, what we want to receive the cash only, and when we receive the cash, we forget about the knowledge that we would have benefited from when these people invest this technology in your country.
Okay.
As it is, like Doctor concluded, there is no way. Technology stands at the center. The world of today, you can't do anything. If you want to talk about health, forget it. If you want to talk about whatsoever, the journalism we are talking about today, many people now listen and watch what you do because of the cutting edge technology. So we must accept that when these persons are coming, let us give them some time. Tell them, okay, you will pay this as tax, and this is what you do. But most of our policymakers are not into that.
But Mr. Luan Crew, for me, the reason why most African countries haven't met the standards are institutional problems, exchanging our minerals with money instead of technical and industrial development, political institutions malpractices, manipulating terms of office, inadequate technology, knowledgeable instructions, misappropriation and embezzlement for wealth meant for development, individualistic or ego life. Fee is writing from the United Arab Emirates. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm called Big Doings, watching live from Bafoussam. The program is really educative. The main African problem is that they think that they can't get all the pleasures they have brought back here at home, which is a lie, okay? It is Mr. Liu and the panelists in the house. Extend my regards to Dr. Nick. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and be the MISCO Mechanical Science and Technology. I think we are our problem. I notice we don't promote technologies. I decided to build this machine to show another face of our country, Cameroon, but I have been going up and down in companies looking for a partner, but no one wants to be a partner. I do so many things that can help Cameroon, but my big problem is always my people who don't want to promote technologies. Good evening, Mr. Liu. How can an African leader go to the Western world, borrow money for development, and instead use it to fight war? Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the entire panelists. You have never brought up any topic which is not interesting. Saying that the problem of Africa is colonization is stupidity, because America was colonized by Britain, and today America is one of the greatest nations in the world. Like Mr. Liu earlier said, maybe it's the conception we have that black man no die dirty. I believe that if a black man was naturally weak, health-wise, that our leaders could get up every morning and receive news that their parents and brothers in the hinterlands are dying because of malnutrition, bad roads, lack of electricity, and good drinking water. I believe that the leaders could have started developing their nations. Secondly, if developed nations could sign alliance that no African leader will go to any of their hospitals for treatment, the African leaders will have no choice than to develop their own nations. Okay, Cedrick Mengot is writing from Ewane. Dr. Nick Ngwaniam, I don't know whether you've read through what obtained in Singapore.
I have listened to, I'm sure many of us have done so. We have listened to Lee somebody, what's the name of that, their president? He passed on. Yes. One president who took over the country, and he put his foot down, and he made things happen. He defined the policy. He was disciplined.
Because almost every African says it's because we're colonized.
No.
Yeah. How do we get ourselves out of this mindset? Because seemingly Africans don't know that almost every Asian nation was colonized. Even America was colonized, like
yes.
I saying.
See. The bottom line is, yes, we were colonized, granted, accepted. And many other countries in the world were colonized, okay? And when it comes to Africa, you have used that concept of colonization. We're using it as a blanket. We're using it as an excuse to not do our own homework. And watch my lips well. Yes, the effects of colonization are still there, like the France CFA and many of these things, and this arm twisting by whoever. But there is something that we ought to be doing that we are not doing. That is the problem. Which means that, let's say for instance, the problems in Cameroon or many African countries are 100%. 50% of the problems of Cameroon are due to the effects of colonization. Let's say, for instance, the France CFA. 50% of the problems are due to the fact that you and I are not doing what we are supposed to do. Then we fail to do what we are supposed to do. We don't accept responsibility for what we are supposed to do. And then we turn around and make it look like 100% of our problems are due to colonization. That is the problem. And until we accept it, we are going nowhere. We have to change that mindset. We are using it as an alibi, as an excuse to not do our homework. Explain to me how colonization is responsible for the fact that our markets are dirty and that we are putting food on the ground in very dirty soil environment. How does colonization, except you are saying that when the French came, that's what they taught us. When the English came, that's what they taught us. It's our stupidity. So in reality, we are using colonization just as an excuse to not do the right thing. And Cameroon is going to, I mean, probably I keep talking about Cameroon, we're talking about Africa now, but I can't help myself. Cameroon is going to be one of those countries that is going to come out of this mess in the years to come, in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because we are going to kind of like correct all of that. And before I give you back the microphone, each time when you guys are talking, I pay attention to what you are saying, and then I come back on a couple of things. Number one, I learned many years ago this phrase. I think I don't know whether I read it in some book or something like that, which said that when Africans are coming back from the diaspora, they bring back containers. When Asians are coming back from the diaspora, they bring back CDs. Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
Na big parable. So look at what we are doing in Cameroon. Many of our brothers in Britain, America, and so on, they keep sending these containers with old junk, and they're selling in that market in Dobo.
Yeah.
So, and we think that is it. That is not it. You will not see any of those junk containers going to an Asian country.
No way.
No way. So, but see, you see the difference in values. Why their own children go and steal, but what are they bringing? One thing, what are they bringing on the CDs? They are not bringing music. They are not bringing TikTok
Programs.
They are bringing programs. They are bringing industries, information. That information we said
Which
they are
they
stealing.
gathered, yes.
That technology, they steal it and carry it on the CD. And these days, you don't even, there's so much, even on YouTube already there, we could just copy. That is what they bring. And when they are coming back to set up a factory, to set up an industry and produce that thing that they saw in America. They don't carry that. If they bring an element, or if they buy one of the pieces of the things from America, is to bring it home and disassemble it, study it, and make their own. That is how it works. So, and then now to the diaspora. There is no country that develops without the diaspora coming back. Your diaspora is your children who went abroad. Bring them back. And here, for some odd reason in Africa, you know, the politicians were afraid of the diaspora because of their political positions, saying that if you bring these people, they'll come and throw me out of my seat. So they created systems where they kept the people locked out up there, but they didn't know that by doing so, they were killing the country. But most of that is going to reverse now. And I think African countries should modify their rules and make it possible for the people in the diaspora to fly home, fly back at will. That is going to change a lot. They are going to bring that needed technology, because that our diaspora is what we now, they will replace the expatriates that we are paying for, who are only helping themselves and not us.
They are like the joker of the technology.
Good. So yeah, they're the joker of the technology and the management. Then somebody was saying about wages.
Yeah.
You remember you read something, somebody complained about wages. You see, I'm coming back on it just so that I correct a certain mentality. My friend is thinking, and my friend and others are thinking of the mentality of the past. And then, Mr. Nji, I know you have read this book, Why A Students Work for C Students and B Students Work for the Government. That is the mindset that makes the country run. You know, we have been trained to go to university, go get a job, work until you die. If you have that mindset and the country is built on that mindset, then you'll be looking at this salary. But in reality, in the way things are going now, nobody looks at that salary. If you are worth your salt and you have gone from Cameroon to the diaspora and you are coming back, don't come back and go looking for a job in the ministry. If you come back and go looking for a job in the ministry, it's a fail. You have failed. Go competing looking for 100,000 in the ministry, you have failed. You end up stealing. You are supposed to come and build the industries that we need. You are supposed to come and put up the country and begin a company and be building the roads.
Partner with the ministry.
Yes, you partner with the ministry and be building the roads. So those companies and industries that are supposed to create opportunities for employing roads are in the hands of the diaspora. Don't come from there and be looking for a job here. If you do that, if that's the mindset, then you have failed. You are no use. Then the other thing is, what was that? There was this a few months back, or a year or two back, I was watching a program by this, there's this Bishop Duncan Nicholas from Ghana, a huge guy like that. He likes wearing white and white. And Bishop Duncan Nicholas was saying something that was very peculiar about African politics and leaders. And he was discussing a topic like the one we are handling now. And he was very bitter. What is the politics of Africa like? In Africa, let's say that I'm the president of Cameroon today, Mr. Nji. You see, you are in the opposition, or you're my friend. You are not interested in helping me to succeed so that the country succeeds. Once I beat you at the elections, I keep everything to myself and my friends. Then you, instead of trying to help me to succeed, you start fighting me from day one, and all you are thinking of is to kick me out so that you take the position. So we spend our time kicking each other out of the seat instead of working for the people and the common good. That is the disease of Africa. And he was saying that in Africa, what we need in Africa is democracy has failed in Africa. Democracy is not useful in Africa. What we need in Africa, like he was prescribed, we need enlightened, benevolent despots. And when some people who want to twist things down, the word despot sounds, it has a negative connotation to it. But that negative connotation is like quinine that has been covered with the sugar. What does enlightened mean? It means that the leader must be somebody who is sharp and knows what the problems of the country are.
Which is what we see in China.
Yes. That's what we are seeing in China.
Literally what we see in China.
In China.
North Korea.
Yes.
Yeah. And they are working.
In Rwanda.
In Rwanda, and they are working.
Yes. That is, a leader is not about democracy. He knows that, okay, tomorrow we are building this road, and no question, and we go for it, no excuses. That is how it works. Somebody, minister or who you mess up, they hit you hard, and it's the common good. The president of South Korea, Singapore that we were talking about, that is what an enlightened, benevolent despot. That is, you are enlightened, you are generous, but you are tough. That's what we need.
Okay, you want to add very briefly?
Yes. To add brief, like he was saying, if you look at the position the Americans are taking recently, they have resorted to, okay, we are going to be very hard. Now, when you hear the Americans keep crying, democracy is in Paris, democracy is in Paris, they are aware that things are no longer working. And the White House, and that is why, if you have the two parties, for example, they have resorted to, okay, let's work together for the good of Americans. So they have waved away the aspect of you looking at that democracy to be what you think. They have resorted to what is going to make the country great. So I think what we need to look at here is, if we can come together. Yes, in the 80s, when we went into a certain single party system, many people did not like it. But I want to say that I am not for that, but I want to say that if we should reason that Cameroon first, Africa first, then when you see an African coming who has the ability to build, you will not hesitate to call that person in. And don't think that because you are not the one leading and you have the idea, it means you are not needed. No, don't focus on that. The Americans are not for that. Everyone matters. The Chinese are not for that, because we are looking at a continent that suffered like us, even had the worst cases of maltreatment than us, yet they are developing, they are on high speed, and we are still within the locomotive system of development.
Mr. Maina, Gana, you live in Uganda. I don't know how the work culture looks there, but are you very versed with what obtains in Cameroon? Especially within the civil service, but even in the private sector, where persons are expected to work 8-12 hours so that we can have maximum output. That is where the value is created for us to be able to be competitive and create wealth for the nation. Most workers spend times actually not working, yet we wonder why we are poor and not developing, because we can only develop through the existing manpower.
Mr. Leo, I can tell you that environment play a big role in people's lives. You see, when we talk about Cameroon, the environment of civil service is not motivated, is not giving people the value to do their job. At the end of the day, people are getting into civil service just to get guarantee for a salary, but they are not going because they want to add value to the country. At the end of the day, when you see people are working between the 8 and 5, someone is going to work by 11, I leave maybe 1, and without even doing anything. You see, when we talk about those developed countries like Korea, like Japan, like we talk about Israel, or we talk about Malaysia, Singapore, at the end of the day, the civil service have accountability every end of the week. What have you realized for the country? What have you done? Is there any progress you have done? But we don't have it here. A civil servant is one of the lazy person in Cameroon. He is not doing anything to develop the country. He's just a part of the numbers. At the end of the day, anybody who is part of the number cannot do something great in life. You can't bring an impact. You cannot change people's life because you don't even know why you are here. Many of them are into civil service just because they want to survive. For them,
There has been brainwashed that you go to school, you get a job, you get a salary, and at the end of the day, it's okay. You don't have any impact to make in life. That's why Dr. Nick was saying that we need to change our mindset. Even though after education, why do you want even work for the government? You can be the government partner. You can create something that can help people, can develop your nation. But at the end of the day, if you are thinking about the civil service, and the worst thing we are having in Africa, even going to this civil service job, you need to pay for it if you don't have someone who can help you get this job. But some of the people now in Africa, they feel entitled because they say that even the concours have paid, to pass the concours and to start working. So for him, he's not there to bring the development. He's there just to get money. That's why people are stealing in government, because they lack purpose, they lack vision, they lack understanding what even they want. At the end of the day, that affected us as Africans in our families, in our communities. If you see that now, people care less about human life, human development, even in the community, because we start losing, the sense of humanness. We start losing our power as a human being to make people life better. Things are getting worse and worse. Why? Because single things, the system and the environment is not helping. It's not giving people the ability to thrive, the ability to bring something big. As Doctor was saying, imagine someone who spent a lot of time in diaspora. When he come back to Cameroon with all the ideas, they will shut him down less than 1 month. He start discrediting himself. He find out things are not working. Only the toughest people that they come back, they put the fight, to make sure that they can bring something. Few are doing it, but some cannot because they don't have the patience, to make things work because the policy is not working. Imagine right now, after studying abroad, I come back to a country with some technology. I need even the support, someone can support me, not even financially, just to promote me, to show that it's a good idea. They will tell you how much are you paying. If you want me to go to take it to the minister, to explain to him what you are doing, you need to pay to see just a minister. How do you want us to develop a country with this kind of life? The difficulties lie that our civil service is completely dead. We need to restructure it. We need to show them the government is a company. The CEO of the company is the president. The general manager is the prime minister. And all those managers, they are ministers. So they need to be tough, because if they are paying you, mean you need to do a service. In people who's working in my media prime today, you want them to give you the better service because you are paying them. But in our government, the biggest company in Cameroon is the government of Cameroon, is the one who's employing a lot of people. But they cannot stand to say that, why are we wasting so much our resources on those people, training them? At the end of the day, they cannot give us their best. But imagine on the 24th evening, look at the line at the bank, people want to collect their salaries. So how do you want us to succeed with it? And they're even happy to go and collect the salary without working. This is what's going on in Africa. We need to change our mentality, Mr. Leo.
We need to change the mentality, but let me come back to you, Dr. Nick. You are an employer in Cameroon, and almost everybody is talking about development for Cameroon.
Yeah.
How do we develop without creating wealth? And how do we create wealth without working? Are we actually not dreaming, hoping that miraculously Cameroon will get rich, Cameroon is going to get developed, when we spend 8 hours enjoying, dancing, whining, womanizing, almost everybody. You employ a person either in the private or government sector. They go to the office, they spend 2-3 hours, and then go out enjoying the whole of the day, and are wondering why things are not being done. How do we get a nation developed or fixed when we are not working?
Thank you very much. If you are going to get your company to work in Cameroon, or your business, number one, you as the leader, you have to be very tough. Number one, with yourself, and tough with everyone else. Make sure that everybody understands the vision. And I said, put the policies down and put your foot down and make sure that those policies are respected. And the other thing that I have to say is, if you have a business, if you have a relative who is good and has the skills, fine. But if you have to create a business and fill it up with your relatives, just because they are your relatives, you are going to die. It's going to collapse. So look for good people who would work your business or work your system up. That's the cardinal thing. Look for people with skills. Look for people who tell the truth. Don't look for liars. They will kill you. Now, Cardinal Tumi of blessed memory, he taught me and my students some principles about 12 years ago. Principles of success. You know, he was talking to us. You know, we came into a classroom and he was talking to these young children. I was learning. Everybody was learning, and he named 6 things that we must do as individuals to succeed in life. And these 6 things, they are the same 6 things that every nation must do, every institution must do. Number 1, he said, you must like work. Everybody must like work. There's no way you can go past it. And number 2, everybody must like work that is well done. So out of 6 conditions, 2 have to do with work. Like work and like work that is well done. So if you come to work and you're supposed to be working for 8 hours and you don't put in the 8 hours and you don't work diligently, you are deceiving yourself, you're killing the company and so on. And let me just remind everybody listening to me when we are talking about this work. You know, many people like to take government jobs as civil servants. For one thing, they argue that when you are a civil servant, you have job security. And you would see someone who would go for a job in the civil service, let's say for 200,000 francs, and would not take the job, let's say, of 400,000 francs with the private sector. Number 1, because he's looking for that place where he will hide and not give his best. But let me tell you that when it comes to this thing called job security, it is not the employer who provides the job security. It is you, the employee. You see, like Mr. Leo here, they're working in a system here in this TV house. Mr. Tambe will be the most foolish person to dismiss the best of his workers. That would mean he's shooting himself in the foot. So when you are employed in a system and you do your best in that system, you put in all that it takes for the system to grow, only a fool would dismiss you from that system. And of course, you know, in a system like that, when they are expanding and are looking for people to do this, they will always look for their best workers and push them up. So if you are in a system and you are not growing, don't blame the manager, don't blame the owner, blame yourself. So it's about self. I'm trying to say this so that we know where we are failing. And then the third thing is self-discipline. Self-discipline is very important, which comes to character. If you can be the best surgeon, the best pilot, the best whatever, the best A-grade student, but if your character is no good, you are no good. You are dead. You are just an intelligent thief. And as long as people don't trust you, you are going nowhere. Because we only grow in this world when people trust each other and we can interact. But if you trust only in your abilities and certificates and you are dishonest, forget it. You'll be thrown in the dustbin. The next thing is honesty. So we said self-discipline, then we said honesty. That's intellectual honesty. Then the 5th element is prayer. Connect with the Spirit, connect with your God, trust your God, and listen to your God. It's very important. The 6th element is respect the environment. I was mentioning these things because this is what, you know, when you put this package together, if I do it, you do it, Nji does it, then this house will move. And if we all do it, if the people in your village do it and they do it in my village, the division will move. If the Bamilekes do it, the Betis do it, and the Northerners do it, Cameroon will move. If the Cameroonians are doing it, Ugandans are doing it, South Africans are doing it, Africa would move. So if we don't do these things, we are liars.
We don't do these things, we are liars. One of the reasons advance for our lagging behind compared with what obtains in the Arab and Asian nations is corruption. It says last but not the least, another leading factor to why Africa is lagging behind is the rest of the world is in innovating technology is corruption. Let's have a look at how a corrupt government can hamper the growth and development of a nation. A corrupt government leads to poor education, poor healthcare system, poverty, the economic gap between the classes of people, economic instability, malnutrition, non-existent security, etc. And all this leads to nothing but deterioration of a nation. How does this, are we saying that because we are corrupt, the resources, Dr. Nick has said that earlier on, that are meant to take care of security, road infrastructure, are siphoned? Or, yeah.
Yeah, every one of these things mentioned, they are connected. If a child is malnourished, he cannot learn well, no matter how good the school is, you can't learn well. No matter how wonderful the teacher is, you can't learn well. If you pick a malnourished child and put in a classroom in the United States with all the facilities, if he doesn't fit well, he will not learn well. That's a fact. Coming to the aspect of corruption, which is the main topic there, or the main heading there, which is corruption, that one is at the center. I'll take a case with some African countries, for example, when you're coming to invest, because we have two types of investors. We have foreign investors and we have local investors. Some of the local investors, they accept the level of corruption which is existing in some of the African countries because they go by it, they play around it. Some of the foreign investors are not so much into that because sometimes they have to shoot themselves in the leg. Take, for example, let me take the case of the Glencore saga. Now, the Glencore, the home country of Glencore, they paid a certain amount in their country because they were involved in corruption in Cameroon, but they have not paid that in Cameroon. That is what we have right now. Now, if you look at the aspect of corruption, for example, particularly most of the sub-Saharan African countries, you have companies that are moving into that area. Most of these companies, they have contracted loans from certain countries which they have their eyes on them. They are watching over them. And when they move into your country, and take, for example, they want to invest, and you have accepted a certain amount they are going to pay, and you have another amount you want that they should pay, but which will not go into the details which they have paid. It causes some companies not to invest. Now let us look at the corruption now which comes as a result of what we currently have. I want to take the case of a school like Ombe, particularly if you meet those who went to Ombe in the 70s and in the 80s, they will tell you that some of the machines which they made in Ombe, which some of them did woodwork, today they cannot do woodwork in Ombe. But those machines do exist on pieces of paper. Somebody receives money for maintenance, puts in his pocket, writes a report, and sends across. The person who receives it is aware that those machines were not maintained, they were not bought. I want to look at the aspect of corruption in our education sector. Now, these machines were not bought. That person who receives that report is aware, because when that is done, there is always what we call prepare the package for that big man. And when you prepare the big man's package, he receives it, he puts also in his pocket and gives his own report that within the year 2001, a certain machine was bought in Ombe. But it was not bought. So who are you killing? You're killing yourself. Now, look at the aspect of corruption. We got computers that would have helped our children to know more about computing. As was said, bought from China. We contracted a loan of 75 billion CFA francs from the Chinese Exim Bank. What did we have? We had computers which are 32 gigabytes, and someone comes out and tells Cameroonians that these computers of 32 gigabytes you see is equal to 500 gigabytes. The question is there an invisible database? Are these computers connected? Now, what do we have? The amount of the computer was not the same. So the computers that were bought, they were of lower quality, but the amount that was committed in that was a quality which, provided that quality was bought, the students who got these computers would have still been having these computers, and it cost some persons to live. That's just an example. So you see how the aspect of corruption will go a long way in killing us. Now, a road is given for some persons to construct, which that road could cause others to move into that area and invest. And let me assume that you received this money and you did the right thing. The investor is going to move in to do that. We also have the aspect of corruption today within the country. Let me take the case of some business guys in Cameroon. I'll take the case of the Supermond without any publicity. Now, some workers said when this company came, they wanted to pay us higher than what CDC pays the others. And there was a problem that if you should pay these people high, it will cost these people not to go to work. So you have to put this money together. Since you have the money, some people said, okay, you put this money together and you envelope it and give it to us. Now, we did not think of diverting that resource to tell that company that the top persons you are going to bring into the country, we are going to train Cameroonians. Maybe the plastics that they are importing, they should put up a plant to produce that plastic in Cameroon. Because the containers we see, the Supermont containers, we import them, for example. So you realize that corruption here is the worst. And that is why the Chinese, I think Dr. Nick had shared a video where a certain leader, when you are involved in corruption in that country, they have nothing to do. They don't take you and put you in prison. They do away with you, what some people call they neutralize, to ensure that such does not continue. And believe me, that did not happen in that country. And that is why you see the country flourishing today because of that. Now, look at the case of China. If you are found in corruption, in any corruption saga in China, your family should openly say to you, we are okay with you because you have nothing to do with your family anymore. Yours ends on that same day. So I think we have to understand that we need to accept this fact, rather, that corruption is the worst thing that can ever happen to a nation. You see, with all the technologies we are talking about, there are still some schools in Cameroon. Some people know that these schools have labs, but they don't have the labs. But the labs do exist on the pieces of paper. So where is the money that was committed to purchase the equipment meant for the lab? This money is in the pockets of some people. And at the end of the day, when we talk about the education system, some students will complain that they have not had practicals. But it is not like the equipments were not purchased or money was not given to purchase those equipment. Money was given, the money is in someone's pocket. So I think on this aspect of corruption, if I were to make some recommendations, I would prefer that when you are found, if you are caught, if you embezzle, if you have anything to do with what causes a country not to develop, the principle Jesus put in place that anyone that will cause this little one to sin, it was better that such a person, they should tie a rope, a stone, and have such a person drown. I think if that is applied with 10 people within a month who are found guilty, then we will not have corruption exist in Cameroon.
Yeah, but Jesus, oh God who created us is not killing us for the sins.
No, it's not necessarily death. It's the punishment that you receive.
Yeah, but you're saying that they should be thrown in.
No, that was of course Christ could not recommend that you should be killed.
Yeah,
meaning, if you are given the punishment, therefore you should not be found in an act of corruption.
My junior brother Atia Tilaris, who works in Vomenda, said in a different program that we had out of in the southwest region that the proposal he's giving to the government is that such persons should be brought either at the Olimbe Stadium or Bipanda Stadium, filled with people, and then they are lashed publicly. That would be good. Yes. But let's look at the issue of meritocracy here. Yeah. Are we not developing also because responsibilities are given to persons who do not have capacity to develop? Because you need technocrats. You would want to ask who are the economists who are advising on the policies, investment policies that are implemented in Cameroon. you would also want to ask who are our road engineers, going by what we are observing on our major highways. And beyond this issue of those who are charged, but the policy of the state itself, if we were to say that we want to develop the agricultural sector, we know the major importers of rice. Why not ask them that you guys are going to import rice for 10, 15 years, you're going to make billions out of it, and the 16, 17, 20 years, we want to see big farm rice, farms of rice developed in Cameroon, and for someone who has imported fish for 20, 25 years. We want to see big fish farms developed across Cameroon. There are persons who are importing this cotton bird and toothpick. We say, okay, we are giving you the license to import this stuff for 5, 7 years, but the billions you're going to make out of it, 10, 12, we want to see you developing industries that will produce these things. Is this not also where we are lacking?
Yeah, we have serious problems in Cameroon and many other African countries. We will talk about this thing about merit, but let's talk about the business. You've been looking at the business and the way we do things. There is a huge difference between a businessman and an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur looks at a problem differently from a businessman. We have many businessmen in Cameroon, and I guess in Nigeria too. We have a lot of business people in Cameroon. But what we have in Cameroon are not entrepreneurs, they are bayam-selams. But they are very rich, a lot of billions and so on. But with the mindset of bayam, go to China, bayam, and then come to Cameroon, selam. But that is not what can develop Cameroon. This bayam selam, and we do it for 30 years. Bayam selam, bayam selam. That's not it. You can never develop. It kills the country. So you mentioned rice as an example, and we all know that in 2008 there was a food crisis and rioting in Cameroon. And what the government did was to put in place a commission to control the importation of these cereals and to keep the prices down. That was a short-term measure that has become permanent. That thing was not supposed to last for more than two or 3 years, because it takes at most 4 months to grow and harvest rice. It takes 3-4 months to grow and harvest corn, or most of those grains, wheat, which means that we could say, okay, in 2008 we probably didn't plan very well, but let's see how in the next 2-3 years we get our farms running. We train so many youths, buy the equipment, bring the technology, bring the seeds and whatever. We have a lot of fertile land, and we show these children how to grow this rice and grow all this, and then we create a system for buying it, and they're not going to be beating themselves. They just use these tractors and run over the whole place and make it happen. That is what we are supposed to do. But from 2008, and we are in 2023, and we are still importing thousands of tons of rice and maize and fish and this kind of thing. So this is lack of planning, lack of foresight, and that's where we are failing woefully. Why? Because the businessman is thinking only of money and gain, but an entrepreneur, how would an entrepreneur look at that problem? The entrepreneur would look at the problem and say, hey, we need food. You see, what is the problem? The problem is we need food to feed our people. The businessman who is a Shylock looks at it this way: I will go borrow money from the banks, go buy that rice or fish and bring it and feed you guys, and then put the change in my pocket or the gains in my pocket. And he keeps doing that all the time. But this is the interesting part. When you go to buy the rice and the fish, you don't buy with CFA, you buy with dollars. And these people who are importing have never created $1. They have never earned $1. And the dollars that they're using to buy are the mama who is farming the coffee and the cocoa. The dollars that the country earns from the coffee and the cocoa. So he comes and takes that money and throws it away. The tree trunks, we sell tree trunks to buy rice and then eat and go to the latrine. So that's not the best way of doing things. Now, an entrepreneur is someone who is surplus, who is in the system, who is in the country, and he looks at it and says, we have a food problem, and we have a lot of youths who don't have work. we have land, we have rain, we have everything. The only thing we don't have is we don't have tractors, we don't have probably very good seeds, we probably don't have the right fertilizers and chemicals. So he says, and we probably don't have the technology. So he assembles all these things together, goes to the bank, gets a little money, and then so he brings in the technicians, brings in the tractors, get the farms, and get people to produce this rice, and he puts tons and tons of rice on the market, produced in the country. So he is helping the economy, he is creating jobs and so on. This is the way we are supposed to be doing things. If we don't do them like that, we are going nowhere. But this is the beautiful thing. The beautiful thing is President Paul Biya has said that we are going in for import substitution, and that's exactly what he meant, that we will have to grow the food that we eat. We have to produce most of the things that we need, because there's a very bad indicator there in the supermarkets, which is not good. You see, our law in Cameroon says that a minimum of 10% of the goods that are sold in every supermarket should be made in Cameroon goods. But interestingly, the people who own those supermarkets are not able to get up to 5% of the goods, because we are not manufacturing. We are not making anything. So in as much as they have the good faith, then we are not making anything. So go to any supermarket, I bet you 95% of everything that you will see there are all imported, and that is not very good. Back now to our merit. Our country has fallen so badly because we are putting the wrong people in the right place. This tribalism, this concours system. Concours are not really what they were supposed to be. Concours were supposed to select the best so that we can put them in those places. But tribalism, man no man, corruption, bribe. So we take the person who can buy the position and then give it to him. We give it to him either because he's from our tribe, either because he has paid a lot of money, either because the sister is our girlfriend. So all sorts of things. So at the end of the day, we have a messed up system where the bright ones are sitting in the quartier and the donkeys are sitting in the chair.
The donkeys are sitting. Okay, Mr. Gana, Maina, we also have issue of poor infrastructure in Africa. The poor infrastructure in Africa is also a contributing factor to why African nations are lagging behind. In Africa, the connectivity is very less as compared to the rest of the world, but rural areas are less connected and more information poor than urban areas. Why have we not been able to connect our cities, to connect our nations so as to facilitate our trade, develop market to farm routes to be able to feed our urban markets rather than importing from out of Africa? We know the volume of food that is brought in from maybe Asia and other continents. Why not develop inroads and railway connecting Africa across west to down to the east, so that we can do business and develop Africa for Africans? Can you unmute your
Sorry, I was saying that
okay.
We can say is a bad governance. Number one, the majority of our roads, if you look them on the paper, they are well paved roads, they are well maintained roads, but the reality is not. Number one. And number two, imagine that 95% of the roads we have in our countries in Africa, especially in Cameroon, those roads was constructed 1980s when the population was almost 7 million. Now we are getting to 30 million. We are using the same roads, mean that they are not even adequate with our population. They are not even matching with our development. If you see the entire region from two regions, from point A to point B, when you see the number of traffic is more higher than the road itself. You know, we are facing those difficulties. You cannot leave from the north going to the south, or from the far north going to the littoral in one day, because we don't even have roads. 1980 road with 5 million or 7 million population. How can we use the same road when we are 30 million? And we do not have a long side. We do not have a long-term thinking in Africa. Everything we are doing in Africa, we are doing on short term. As Dr. Nick was saying, imagine that we are having food issue. We continue importing. We cannot sit down to find a solution. When it go to infrastructure today, I can tell you I'm the far north. I remember 1990s when you are in Marwa, from 90 to 2000, when you are in Marwa, you want to go to Kuseri, it takes you 3 hours. Today, it will take you 3 days. In 2023, mean after 30 years, we go back again that the roads are very bad. Marwa Kuseri is 230-something kilometers. Can you imagine that 230-something kilometers? You can spend 3 days on the road. That is, I can understand that. But in 1990s, the road was so well that it takes 3 hours, maximum 4 hours you are there. But in 2023, it takes you 3 days. Which development are we talking about? If we don't even cut 230 kilometers, it takes you 3 to 4 days. How can we succeed with this kind of leadership? And the majority of those leaders, they are coming from those areas, they are seeing it. But when you ask them, they tell they don't even know. How can we develop a country that we don't even have a plan for infrastructure? How? It's not possible, because we cannot even transport the crops from the farm to the city. That is the first problem we are having. Number two, we have a lack of accountability. In Africa, people are not accountable. How come we are having such a problem that there's nobody can put them accountable to explain exactly what's going on? Why this thing is happening? Why things like this is happening in this region, but nobody can talk? Going. So without infrastructure, how can we develop a country? How can we develop our continent? And until now, we cannot find a good companies who can build our infrastructure. We need to bring Chinese, or we need to bring some another from Europe or from America. We need foreign countries. Why building simple bridges and roads? We cannot bring Cameroonian, we cannot bring our brothers African to build it. Why do we need foreign companies? And we have this money. The 97% of the material we are building our roads is coming from Africa. So why we African, we cannot do it? Let me tell you again, we can come back day and night talking about our government is not helping matters. We are having the difficulties of lack of government, lack of accountability. We don't have vision. Our government don't have vision for the country. We are just talking vision 2030, vision 2035. If you have not, you don't have the vision for 2 years, short term, medium, and long term. So how do you want to develop a country? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And but the businessmen themselves, we have politicians themselves who are sons and daughters of Africa. Take the case of the local and national representatives. They are all from Africa. They are all from divisions. They are from regions. They are from the nation. What would explain that they would not work in favor of the welfare of their brothers and sisters? Because their friends live in these communities, their families live in these communities. Why would they not want to do what they see obtained in Dubai, in Qatar, where people don't work but they're paid? And what would account for this?
It's about policy. It's about policy.
What policy? What policy says that as the city mayor of Douala, we all see what is happening with the roads of Douala? Dr. Nick, look at the markets in Bonamusadi, look at the traffic situation. What policy tells you not to work?
Yes, let me explain this to you, Mr. Kum. We have council roads, we have state roads or national roads. Within the aspect of the council roads, we have a certain procedure put in place which these persons are forced to. Now, it is not like these policies are a good one. That is where I want to land. The policies are not good policies. The mayor would tell you that there are certain roads. I'll take the case of
let's look away from these national roads.
Let's look at the council roads, or the municipal roads. Now, with regards to the municipal roads, firstly, since we have refused that persons who have the might to help us, give us good roads, should not do it because they are not affiliated or they are not members of our party. We have spoiled everything. There are some people, like you said, there are people whose family live in certain enclave areas where there are no roads network, and they would have loved to have that area have a road. But because they are not a member of a particular group of people, it becomes difficult. Now, we cannot refuse that. Now, let's take the case of, like you cited, let me take Douala 4, for example. Let's assume that Douala 4 needs a certain level of management, and who is charged with that duty? It is the mayor. But where he doesn't want to do it, because some of the councillors are persons who have received what they do not deserve, they cannot bring him over to having control. And whether we like it or not, if we want to extrapolate Cameroon from the sub-Saharan African countries, which are which are the worst of the countries we are talking about, you realize that you must accept what is on the ground before your ideas should be put on the table. This is where it is bad. And the citizens also, most of the citizens do not think national. We want to live a life that we see in Beverly Hills. We want to see a life that we see in Detroit. We want to see a life that we see in Paris and the rest. I eat, I dump dirt where it's not supposed to be dumped. I walk on the road, I see what is wrong. I don't even call authority to order, because there is another way which we can bring these people to order. When was the last time a certain group of people went to the mayor's office and complained, let me take this kind of case, or this case, that we are not happy with the way the roads are? They are quick to tell you, let it be there, how does that concern me? Coming to the studio this evening, the taxi I boarded from one point to Bonamusadi, there was an interesting topic. I sat quietly listening to what the passenger behind and the others were discussing, and the driver particularly. A certain passenger raised the issue of when you go around Tradex, where you see some fallen poles. I think there is a pole there that was hit by a car, and it lies on the road. And a passenger, one of the passengers on board, had issues with that, and he said, what is really wrong? And another person said, what can we do? There's nothing you can do, so leave the way you see it. Then I was like, what do you mean? One person have an issue that there is something that we really have to do. Another person says, leave it the way it is. And this is what is happening. But I want to say that where the leadership fails to develop an area, the people should take it upon themselves, because everything is not in the hands of the leadership. Of course, some of these mayors, as we all know, they walk in their big jeeps. The bad roads does not even affect them. Sometimes when they want to go out, they can bring to order and they walk on that good part of the road. So I think that the citizens also, this is the time for us to also move out from that aspect of the blame game. Let us think national. Now, if we have persons who are already doing some work on the ground, irrespective of whether they are told to do that or not, it is because they want to do it. Yesterday, which was the World Refugee Day, for example, I took it upon myself and I led Rere Habet to meeting some of the refugees to tell them what was supposed to be done. Now, somebody, when I contacted a friend, I said, I would love that we should make this move together. Then he told me to my face, what is my gain there? But if you look at the fact that these refugees, as per what is said, they have certain rights that they have to enjoy, and to him, because there was no direct benefit as he looks at it. So this is the mentality we have. Somebody will ask you, you are telling me to go and do that thing. What is my benefit? Am I the one who is receiving money for it? I think we have to work on our mindset. If we do not go back to reshape ourselves, it will be very difficult. All the fine talk here will have no effect if the mindset of the persons who are receiving, if the recipients do not change the mindset, nothing will change.
Dr. Nick Ngwaniam, 2 minutes. we need mindset shifting across the board, from the political, economic, social, and basic level.
Yeah. And it's only the education that can do that, and we have to change that. If we don't change that, it's not going to work. You see, you are wondering why is it that we have all these leaders, and then nothing seems to be working. It's because you remember you remember that our fan, the politics, the economics, and the development, and getting that whole lot together. So you have a lot of these people who just fight and get power just for the sake of the power. But let's put them on a hot seat and then question them about economics, question them about development. You will not get very much out of them. So people go into the positions of power, not necessarily knowing what they would do when they get the power. They just go there and they are just interested in the fanfare, in the money they will make, but the common good is none of their business. And they don't even know what they are supposed to do to make things happen. So they blame each other, oh, they didn't send money, and give them even tons and tons of money as a budget. You still get nothing out of them, because they are not entrepreneurial in their mindsets, and they don't care about the common good.
Okay, they are not entrepreneurial in their mindset, and the common good is not their issue.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we are going to still continue with discussing the leadership puzzle in Africa. One of the best in the domain, Mr. Roland Quemen, is going to be our guest on tomorrow's edition of Prime Hour. We say thank you to you, Doctor, for coming.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Good evening again.
Mr. Nji, thank you for coming.
Thank you. It was a pleasure once more.
And Mr. Gana, I don't know whether he's there. Okay, I'm told that he's gone. We want to thank you all for watching this edition of the program, and also grateful to the production team. Please, we are calling on you who is watching this program and is a business person who would want to advertise with us. Call me, and I'm sure we're going to do a special promotion for you. You're going to pay very little and be able to reach out to so many persons who are consuming your products. You may be an owner of a hotel or a provider of any service. Please call me and let us see how we can help sell you to your target client. We say thank you for watching. Stay blessed. Bye.